welcome back to the class, everyone. We've gotten a lot of Lightspeed bundles to date now, and some of them have been really good, some of them have been really bad, and some of them have just been plain odd. Well, for this May the 4th, the Lightspeed bundles that we will be analyzing the value of, they mostly fall into that last category. Now, before we get into analyzing the overall value and the nuances that come with them being so odd, I do want to address the elephant in the room with the Lightspeed bundles we are addressing, and that is the fact that we are not addressing all the new ones for May the 4th just yet. For those of you who have been keeping up with it, you know that there are 10 total Lightspeed bundles, or new Lightspeed bundles, coming out for this May the 4th season. That being said, 6 of them that are being shown are essentially just new standard packs. 4 of them that I do not have shown here are going to be new iterations of previous Lightspeed bundles, and for lack of a better term, really just more expensive versions of them. So I will be talking about those in a completely separate video. Number 1, they don't come out for about a week, so that buys me a little bit of time to do so. Number 2, 10 is a lot to address all at once. And number 3, they need to be viewed in a different light, because different from the ones that we're talking about today, I think they're intended to replace older, better versions that CG probably has what I'm calling spender's remorse. But at any rate, we're not going to talk about them anymore. They are for another video. Let's go ahead and get on into the nitty-gritty of these Lightspeed bundles. So the first one that I want to talk about that we have at the very top here is going to be the Dark Side Mando pack. And I'll show it here briefly on screen. It is going to contain an R5 Gar Saxon, ISC, Jango, and Canderous. Now, different from several of the other packs that we are going to be looking at, all 4 of these characters are good characters. And not only that, they're typically, getting to that in a second, they're typically really nice to have at Relic 5. Jango Fett and Canderous are actually requirements for things, not quite at that level for Canderous, but still it might be something to be useful when you're going after Darth Revan and JMK. And then Gar and ISC are going to pair really, really well with Maul, especially if you don't have Lord Vader or if your Lord Vader is already upgrading to the new area of clones. But overall, analyzing the exact value of the pack for the amount of money you're spending, it is decent. And by decent, I mean it's in line with pretty much all the other Lightspeed bundles that have come out recently. It's not doing anything amazing. All those characters are legacy characters, are old characters that didn't require Chirotech, so you're really not getting that much value for Chirotech overall. And Relic 5, while is good, there's only 4 of them at Relic 5. So for the pack to cost $15, and you essentially only get about $145 worth of value if you were to buy that equivalent of signal data and Chirotech in the store. It only comes out to about 9-10 times better. Again, this does not include Gear 12 pieces, so if that is really valuable to you, this number is probably really conservative and it could be worth even more. The thing that I want to address that is a bit odd, and I mentioned that at the beginning of the video, is the fact that Gar and ISC, it's not a very common counter, but it's used by a lot of people that like to punch up in Grand Arena. There is a Empire fleet counter to Profundity that is best utilized, it's not the only way to use it, but it is best utilized when Gar and ISC are actually below Relic levels. I think at max they can be like Relic 1 with no mods, but typically you want to have them at Gear 12. The reason why they want to stay at Gear 12 for that specific fleet interaction is because there's a very specific turn order where you want the enemy fleet to go first so that the Gauntlet, which is the ship they're in, to actually go and cleanse after the debuffs have already been applied. If you take them both to Relic 5, they'll be fantastic with Maul or even on their own in 3v3 versus Gas, but it will mess up that turn order for fleet. So again, I'm not saying you shouldn't get this pack. In fact, I have taken both ISC and Gar up to Relic 5, or Relic 3 and 5, despite having used that in fleet before. So it's not bad, it's just something you need to be aware of if you are going to go through with it. The other nuance that I want to talk about in regards to this pack is the fact that from a PvP perspective, you're really only going to be getting a lot of value if you also have Maul. Now there is a Maul pack, and we'll get to him, but that one is actually really expensive. So moving on to the Iden pack. Now I like the Iden pack in a similar vein, but as I mentioned with the Mando pack, this one is going to have some maybe not bad, just outright bad characters, but some really non-ideal ones. Now, this will give you a fully functional Iden versio team, and she does have some pretty strict requirements to who is allowed on her team. She doesn't just take any Imperial Trooper, she wants ones that specifically aren't droid and aren't leader, so the 4 that you are seeing in her pack here are actually all going to work with her. The problem is, these, other than the Stormtrooper, are really the backup Iden, are options for Iden. If you have them to spare, if you're not using them with Dark Trooper Moff Gideon, Death Trooper, Range, and even Scout Trooper can actually work really, really well with Iden. You wouldn't use Range with the Imperial Remnants, but you guys kind of get the idea that these are not really her first string of characters. That being said, if you're fighting a standard Mon Mothma team without Luthen and GAC, or a CLS team, this team will still function, assuming you have the Iden Omicron. In addition to that, it also does come with Iden Ship, which I have not factored into the value equation at all. So it actually might have more, especially if you don't want to have to go out of your way to farm that. But overall, it does offer more Chirotech than the Dark Side Mandalorian bundle does, because Iden is not an older character, so she herself requires 400 Chirotech to take up to relics. And the signal data is also higher, because while they are at the same relic levels as the previous pack we looked at, there are more of them. So even if you don't necessarily want those characters to be all the way up there, at the end of the day, it still is getting you more signal data. And with the pack being more expensive, it essentially comes out to the same overall value as the Dark Side Mando one. I don't like it, again, as much, just because that isn't the ideal team for Iden, although it is functional. So the next one we need to look at, and this one's gonna make me a little bit sad. The next one that we're gonna look at is the Jedi Vanguard pack, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all. It is the cheapest one. It's coming in at $10. The characters are all at Relic 5, but and maybe I'll be dead wrong. Maybe the future will just say, Calvin, you're going to be really wrong, because all these characters, or most of these characters, are going to be either really important with the new Legendary Mace Windu or in the new raid. But I'm a Gundai is as useless as his name implies. I'm a gonna die. Like, he just doesn't do anything in any game mode at all. He's probably a platoon, which is what you say, which is the nice thing you say about a character when you know they are awful in every other respect. Luminar and Kit Fisto have been good in the raid. The problem is that raid is ending likely in a month or two, so you're getting very little value, and especially considering there was already a pack that came out that already had the 2 of them in it. Mace, the one really good character in here, is also probably the one that most people already have, at least at Relic 3, because I believe he's required for JMK at that level. And quite frankly, you might have even just taken him up to Relic 5 or 7 or 8 because he was fantastic to begin with. So, I don't know. If you're just in the spirit of collecting relics, like for the Cup Pack, the Cup Pack was funnier at least, then by all means, go ahead and get this, but I just don't like it. I know it's $10, but all I look at here is that I'm buying something that I will probably never use, or 3/4 of it I will use for 2 months. Again, assuming they don't end up in the raid, and, well, they might. Next up, the pack that I want to analyze is going to be the Maul pack. Now, Maul himself does require 400 Chirotech, and he is only one character at Relic 5. So overall, the value for his pack should actually be really low, or the overall value that we're giving it should be really low, but it's not. A lot of you out there are aware of the fact that Maul is not a normal character. He is a Proving Grounds or Conquest character. I'm not really sure how we want to label him. But what that means is you can't just go onto a random node and farm him for 2 or 3 shards a day. No, you have to wait every single month for the Proving Grounds event to roll around. You have to actually be able to beat it, and then if you want even more shards, you have to pay through the nose. I think it's like 2,200 crystals just to get 20 more. So he's not a cheap character. So while the overall Chirotech and signal data is very low value for him because he's just one character, the actual cost to get his shards is going to be very high. Now, I believe he's also available with Get 3 currency, but that's a really high value currency, so I haven't really factored that into the equation. But at the end of the day, a $40 pack, it's just really expensive, especially for Lightspeed bundles. A lot of Lightspeed bundles, I mean, you look at the other 4 or 5 that are on this list currently, it's $15, it's $10, it's $20. Like, they're not, it's pretty much double. Like, you could get 3 of these other packs for the same price of that one. But at any rate, The extra value that we are attributing to the Maul pack is about $231. That $231 is a rough estimate for how many crystals you would have to buy if you wanted to get Maul straight up through Proving Ground refreshes. It's not exactly a fair number because you can't just refresh it a million times in the very first event to be able to unlock him. But at the same time, this also kind of factors in the fact that you're paying for your time, because if you're refreshing the event every single month, you're also just essentially farming him just at a slightly more accelerated rate, different than buying him through shipments, which is how the rest of this is figured out. So overall, the value for the Maul pack is pretty low. So I mean, if you love the character, you're gonna get the Dark Side Mando pack. You want to be able to use that team. You want to go and kill like a JMK or something. Fantastic, great. But just know overall, if it's just something you're trying to tick off the board, it actually might be better. Again, comparatively speaking to the other packs here from an overall value perspective, it might not be the best option. So ultimately, that's going to be up to you and what your patience level is with going through Proving Grounds. But overall, it's just a really expensive pack for one character. A good character, but one character. Next up is going to be General Grievous and the Malevolence. Now, this one, again, is a bit odd because it, again, is just General Grievous as well as the Malevolence. Now, the pack is cheaper than the one that did this with Negotiator, but it does come with quite a bit less. Overall, I'm giving it quite a bit of value. One thing that you will notice on the spreadsheet here is we're saying that you are getting about 1,400 Chirotech by going after this pack. You all know, no character in the great game, let alone General Grievous, a really old character, requires that much Chirotech. In reality, General Grievous requires 100 Chirotech. So where on earth am I pulling the other 1,370 from? Well, we've done this with Negotiator, and I think we also did this with Cam. If we actually go in game, you will see that if you want to buy Malevolence, not through a Lightspeed bundle, you will have to spend Get 2, and quite a bit of it. If you were to take every single piece of that Get 2 for 330 shards of Malevolence and spend it on, say, Chirotech, which is also a really popular use for Get 2, then that would amount to 1,370 Chirotech. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to show the overall value of not just General Grievous, but the value that comes along with having Malevolence and not having to farm it. That also doesn't include the amount of time that it would take you to accrue all of that currency and also spend it or wait for Malevolence to fall in the right place in that store. So overall, we're assuming that you're going to be getting the value of 1,400 Chirotech. There is a little bit more signal data than, say, with the Maul pack, because Grievous is at Relic 7, which is really nice because he loves Relic 7. And overall, the pack is coming out to about $209 in value, meaning it's about 12 times better than the overall price for it. Now, the only thing that I really have against this pack is General Grievous is probably the 6th most important fleet right now, and he's also not even really like a building block. Like, we're going to talk about Razor Crest here in a second because it's in the next pack. Razor Crest is a super important building block all the way through the end game, because you have to have Razor Crest to be able to get Executor, and then once you have Executor, you can add on P1, and you essentially get the second best fleet in the entire game, or even rivaling the best fleet in the entire game. Malevolence, you get it, it's okay, and then you're done. It doesn't really continue to scale well. But at the same time, $25, different from the Maul pack we talked about, just overall isn't that expensive. And then again, you get the value of having Grievous right to R7, which is great for ground and requirements if you don't already have them. So now last, and probably not least, is going to be the BAM and Razor Crest pack. Now this one it is weird, and I'm going to explain why. The reason it's weird is because it's going to give you a conquest ship, which, as we talked about with Maul, should be incredibly valuable, because Proving Grounds is a pain in the butt, and even if you want to refresh it, it comes at a high cost. He's available for Get 3, but that's a really high value currency. So it would seem that it's probably going to be a really expensive ship. However, Razor Crest, for whatever reason, probably because it was the first Conquest character we got, was also put on fleet, or in the fleet store. And he doesn't appear a lot, but he does appear. So people who are willing to go the really long way around, there might be value here, or there might not be value here. And people who don't want to have to go the long way around of constantly checking that, hoping it's there, specifically always having the currency for it, yeah, it's going to depend on what you want and what you're overall going for. So overall, there is 600 Chirotech in this pack because it also does give BAM if you already have them unlocked, which shouldn't be that big of a deal because there's another pack you can buy, so problems and solutions. Anyways, he takes 600 Chirotech. That is, I think that's as much as Rey and SLKR. Like, that is an enormous amount of Chirotech. If you look on this list, that's the second highest Chirotech on this list, and almost all these packs include multiple characters. So, yeah. Anyways, really expensive Chirotech. You get that value. It is at R5, so yay, more signal data. But most of this value that I can, if I were to attribute to it, is going to come from the fact that the Razor Crest is a proving ground ship. So the $231 that we put in here is the same one that we saw for Maul before. If I were to take that out, the pack is only worth about 125 bucks, which I guess is still decent, but it only becomes 8 times better than if you were to buy it through shipments rather than 24, and that 24 would be if it was containing that $231. Now, again, Razor Crest, different from some of the other things on this list, is actually an important building block. It's going to be able to help you unlock Executor. You'll be on the Executor comp. Then you'll hopefully get P1 later, who has not quite as much of a grind as a Conquest character. So there's a lot of different ways to scale this overall. So again, I don't really hate any of these packs. I don't also really love a lot of them, but they're very nuanced. There's going to be a lot of determinations depending on whether you want them. It doesn't just come down to how much signal data and how much Chirotech is actually involved in them. It's going to be really personal to your roster. Dark Side Mandos, again, do you use that one counter, or would you like to use that one Empire versus Profundity fleet? Do you have Maul? With Iden, do you have better troopers that you could use her with? Or are you eventually going to want to phase those troopers out to a better team like the Imperial Remnants? Jedi Vanguard. Actually, this one, I'll just call this bad. This isn't really weird. I mean, I guess if you want to get good raid scores for another 2 months. Maul. Great character, expensive. Does it pay off? I don't know. You tell me. General Grievous with Malevolence. Again, a lot of Chirotech behind that get to. And then BAM and Razor Crest. Really just how patient are you with it appearing in the fleet store, or would you rather just be done with it overall? So that is going to be the video today. Do stay tuned. In less than a week, we will be talking about those variation 2 other Lightspeed bundles that we will also be a part of May 4th. But at any rate, thank you guys for watching, and as always, stay awesome.